Kvaratskhelia steadying himself! A star in the making. And there's the only goal! Sabiri with it! After 11 years, once again, Milan are the champions of Italy.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie A Sitdown, World Football Index's podcast for your Calcio to go. I'm Frank Crivello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. How are we doing this evening?
We are bracing for a winter storm here in Wisconsin.
We don't have winter this winter.
Most people haven't.
Yeah.
My kids are already, their school's already closed tomorrow, and my wife is staying home from work tomorrow. And she's trying to talk me into staying home and working from home. I'm just like, well, if you're here, I'm going to work. So, I mean, I don't want to try to do my job amid the chaos of everybody in the house and all that other stuff. So, plus, I think she'll just get mad at me because I don't know how much work I'll get done. I'll have on Europa League games and whatnot. So,
but you are still married, as am I, because we didn't do our podcast on Tuesday like we normally do.
Correct.
Valentine's Day.
Yes, Valentine's Day. So we couldn't, we didn't want to get the wives upset. And of course, Sunday night was Super Bowl. So
yeah, a really good game.
It ended up being a good Super Bowl. So I
thoughts?
Go ahead.
What are your thoughts on the Super Bowl overall as a collective?
I thought it was a well played game. I thought that Philly's game plan was outstanding. It was, but you don't bring field goals to a touchdown fight when you're playing the Chiefs, and to have a couple of drives stalled and to be in a situation where they had to settle for field goals probably, was part of it. And then their defense suddenly couldn't stop the Chiefs. The guys on NFL radio, one guy, I think it was Rich Gannon, said the two biggest plays of that game were the Chiefs' fumble return for a touchdown in the first half, and then Kadarius Toney's punt return. Were probably the two most important plays of the game. Because, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, the Eagles were driving and were up.
Yeah.
I want to say they're up 17-7. Or no, it was 14-7, and the Chiefs came back and tied. Yeah. They drive and make that a two. That's a huge 14-point swing. We're probably talking about like 24-7, 27-7 at halftime in favor of the Eagles. And that game, and sure, the Chiefs would make a big comeback, but you'd have to think the Eagles would go on and win the game. So, but turnovers are important. Turnovers are huge in that sport. I guess we're giving commentary on non-calcio stuff. So.
Yeah. I thought the game was. I thought the game was great. The game was absolutely great. I think the halftime show was lacking. I love Rihanna. I love her music, but I thought it was lacking.
See, we switched it. We put on, what did we watch? We watched my kids get a kick out of the Family Feud, like the funny Family Feud clips with Steve Harvey. So we just put in a bunch of those. So
I also thought the commercials were lacking. They weren't funny at all. And my biggest gripe with the commercials, really.
The commercials sucked.
Yeah, no, my biggest gripe was the propaganda, really, honestly, because it was propaganda about the military, propaganda about the politics, and propaganda about religion. And really, I made some comments too, like I'm 100% for the military. I believe in the military guys. I believe in our boys and girls out there. But I think the propaganda on it was so oversaturated, it diminishes what they are about, and people overlook them because there's so much propaganda about it. People are just like, oh, whatever. And it's like, it does a disservice to them, honestly. That's my biggest gripe is all that propaganda stuff. And I'm like, let's see funny commercials. We said none of them. I'm like, let's get to the game. The game was the best part, and the game was fantastic. I mean, it was high scoring like we were hoping for, and overall, I would say it's a good Super Bowl experience. So
yeah, and those are some interesting comments from you on. I just found the commercials to be not funny, and I'm looking for something to laugh at. And,
they weren't.
And I didn't find a single one funny, or at least funny enough. And it's just kind of like maybe I'm just getting old, and maybe what I think is funny and what it is just way different than even 10 years ago.
Segue though. You know what is funny is all those Milanisti that wrote off Milan heading into this weekend, and now they're back.
You'd think I'd be sweating from all the victory laps I've run over the last couple of weeks. I mean, these idiots. I'm sorry. I'm just going to flat out call them, because I had one guy trolling me on Twitter every time Milan lost, and you know what he would troll me with? He would troll me with a screenshot that I sent him of when Milan won 6 out of 8 back in October, like before the World Cup. And because he was, cause I think he said something about 90 days. This has been bad for 90 days. And then I sent him that screenshot where they won 6 out of 8 in all comps. And I said, well, this is part of your 90 days, just so you're aware. So, and then he just came back and is like, and I told him, I said, you must be tough to impress. And he came back, and every time they lost, he wanted to stick it to me. And it's just kind of like, I haven't heard from him in a couple of weeks all of a sudden. So it's just like, right. I think I called him an idiot, and I said, I'm really not worth the trolling that you're doing. So
I concur.
I consider myself to be the last person on this planet to be trolled by anyone. So
I guess I should stop with my burner account.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was you. So we want to thank you, by the way, Richard, for your donation of Malik Chow to Milan, as Anthony puts it.
About damn time he got to play.
Yeah. So, oh man, so we've got a pretty packed show tonight. We're going to talk about the Champions League kicking back off with Milan getting Serie A off to a good start. In particular, EPL's having a bad week. Just putting that out there. Your arch nemesis, Borussia Dortmund beating Chelsea today. I'll just leave out the fact that I tell you, when I do watch Bundesliga, I probably enjoy watching Borussia Dortmund more than anybody. Just I know you don't like hearing that, but
I don't. But, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Not to see you suffer, just because I think the way they play is entertaining. So. But anyway, so Milan winning over Tottenham. We'll preview the Europa and Conference League games, because we got 4 Serie A teams in action tomorrow. So we'll dive into that. We'll maybe tap into a little of what to expect with Napoli at Eintracht Frankfurt and Inter hosting Porto in next week's Champions League games as well. But Richard, let's lead off and take it away, man. Milan and Tottenham, first leg, UEFA Champions League.
Yeah, 2 teams really. When the draws came out, both teams were in pretty decent form, and people were salivating at this prospect of this match. It's Conte versus Milan. It's the talented Tottenham team with Harry Kane and Son versus Milan's defense and guys like Leao and Giroud. But both teams have been faltering as of 2023. Really, both teams really struggling. Milan obviously dropping in the standings in Serie A. Tottenham not really making a push for the top 4, or at least their chances have been stalled. So this game is really a chance to see one of these teams maybe come out of their slump. Milan had a little bit of improvement leading up to this with 2 games prior in Serie A. But you never know with Champions League. It could have also been a very, very dull affair. But what we saw is a game where Champions League DNA kind of played a part in this. Looking at Milan, they came out with a 3-4-3 kind of. We saw this in the games leading up to it, where they're kind of testing things. But the big thing I think was Salamaker's back on the right wing side. I think he's been a revelation in terms of a much improved performance over Calabria, who's been on the right hand side. Teo's kind of relieved of his defensive responsibilities because he's more in that midfield wingback role. And Malik Chow, he's inserted into the back 3 along with Kieran Kalulu. People are wondering, would Pioli put someone in the back in there, someone other than Gabbia? He did. And 2, how would Chow fare in this? And we saw both were exclamation marks, like fantastic job by Malik Chow, probably the best defender in the game for Milan. Milan early goal through Ibrahim Diaz. Forster did make some great saves, 2 saves on 1 or 2 saves on Diaz, but Diaz persistent and ran home the rebound in there, got the early goal, and that's really all Milan would need. Tottenham really didn't threaten Milan in this game. I thought we saw as Milan play very defensive, very stout defensively, and really didn't allow Tottenham to create any chances. Tatarusanu didn't have to come up big. The big worry was it's two backup goalkeepers, but if you had to rate them, its force is much better than Tatarusanu. And Tatarusanu, we didn't have to worry about him because the defense was pretty good. And so overall, I think Milan get a lot of credit. They kind of took chokehold of the second half of that game and really started squeezing the possession away from Tottenham. And so a solid victory. I mean, both teams are okay going to the second leg, right? It's one goal down for Tottenham and Milan's got an advantage. But Milan do have the advantage, and the way these teams are playing at the moment, anything is a good thing at the moment. So good first leg, good kickoff for Serie A for Milan to get the victory in this one. So where do you want to start with this?
Let's start with Brahim Diaz for proving me wrong. The physicality of Premier League teams, I thought that he was probably the one. Who is this? Dietary BR, by the way.
Just ignore it.
Is that a bot?
Ignore it, Frank.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
All right, we're going to ignore it. Okay, so anyway, so let me come back to Brahim Diaz, the physicality of the Premier League. I thought, and after the game against Torino on Friday, I just thought, man, Brahim's going to get the shit kicked out of him in this game. I mean, just between whether he runs into Longley or whether he deals with Pape Sarr, a little bit of Perisic and some of the spaces that he's going to run into. But I thought, he actually performed admirably. He the persistence obviously with the goal, but I thought there was some other dangerous running that he did, some passing, some creativity. I thought, if a player needed to, an example of a player that needed to score early, it was him. Okay, so because it gives you that, hey, I can play against these guys, and he had that translate, and he turned in a relatively solid performance. I thought that Salamakers was very good in neutralizing Perisic. We've always been worried about Perisic when he was with Inter, playing against Milan and being a danger man and creating some problems. So I thought that was I thought we had a good performance from him. Malik Chow, I mean, what else can you? I mean, 2 starts and 2 excellent performances. The combination, you could flip a coin between him and Simon Kjaer over who should be man of the match in this game, and I wouldn't have an argument if you picked either one.
Kjaer huge bounce back game. Yeah,
I thought that he played with maturity. He led the defense with the maturity and the experience that befits him. They kept Harry Kane quiet, and they kept Heung-min Son relatively quiet. They kept Tottenham as an attack pretty quiet. I mean, they were at their most dangerous when they were in offside positions. That was their most dangerous chances, where they were offside.
You could argue Kalulu pocketed Son, Kjaer pocketed Kane, and Kulusevski was pocketed by Chow.
Yeah. I mean, it was a fantastic display. Couple things that I will just to nitpick. Right now, Giroud. These last handful of I've seen more technical errors and misjudgments with runs off the ball from him in these last couple of weeks than I've seen maybe in the last 3 to 5 years of watching him play.
Yeah.
That is concerning. It could be, and there's a number of factors here. It could be World Cup rust, fatigue,
hangover, whatever. Yep.
Having the hardest time adapting to this new formation. The off the ball runs and some of those things might be a little bit different, and it just taking some getting used to. There isn't a 10 directly behind him to link off of him, although Brahim kind of comes into those spaces a little bit. But that's mildly concerning. And then just Milan going forward altogether is mildly concerning. Now, I understand that this is a progression with this change in formation. And where do you want to be good first? You want to be good defensively. You want to keep teams out. Okay. Yeah. And in 3 games since going to the 3-man defense, Milan have conceded 1 goal, and it was on a corner. And those teams were Inter, Torino, and Tottenham. They're not pushovers.
No.
Okay, so the attack has to get better, and I anticipate that the attack will get better. As they continue to play in this formation. I think we said after the derby, they have to play like this. They have to set themselves up like this because the benefits to what's going on defensively here is that the chances that opponents are taking on Milan's defense, okay, there's still maybe 12 to 15 shots a game that the other team is taking, but those shots are much more predictable. Okay. Those shots are a lot easier. Those shots have become a lot easier for Tatarusanu to read.
Yeah.
So the quality, so the quality of the defending is radically improved. They've set themselves up to make opponents predictable, and that's made the job easier for Tatarusanu. Okay. We said it before a few weeks ago. You can't play the same way with Tatarusanu in goal that you do with Maignan in goal. You're just going to leak goals. Okay. For reasons beyond Tatrasanu's playing ability as a goalkeeper. It's the confidence level of the defenders in front of him, to be able to do different things and so on and so forth. So that's what I would say here. And I actually thought Raphael Leao was very good.
He's still trying too many tricks, though. Also, like you were talking about the technical issues with Giroud. Every other play by Leao is something between his legs or behind the back or something crazy. And yeah, he's getting better and he played well, but a lot of unforced errors, I thought, by him in this game.
I thought he did a nice job of finding space with the ball.
Yep. He's so good on the ball.
The finished product wasn't there.
Correct.
And I think that's where we'll be critical of him. So, to that point. And that's and the other thing to complain about here, in a two-legged tie, you're anything that's close to a full chance, you've got to score. And there were two chances there late in the game, one from Leao, one from CDK, that this could have been put away already going back to London. So, or potentially
Malik Chow as well. Malik Chow had a header as well that he missed.
Yes, that he just put wide in the first half. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
or was that second half? That was second half.
Second half. Yeah. And so I think overall it was a solid performance for sure. Defensively, we were fantastic. I thought, with the prospect of possibly having Maignan back for the second leg, it's been a huge boost, right? Already, and obviously probably Lloris is going to be back as well. But
Maignan, Benacer, Tomori should all be back.
Yeah. Then you gotta, if this back three continues to play the way they're playing, then you got to question: do you bring Tomori in or just leave him as it is? Right? That's a good question to have if you're Pioli. But I think what we saw in this game, and I'm curious on your thoughts. I mentioned that after the game that what we saw from Malik Chow was that he finally gave him trust and he showed you what he can bring. People want to say he just came from the second division, German team. To an extent, yes, but he played in the Bundesliga before. He's played against Dortmund. He's played against Bayern. He's played in these big games before, so he has experience. Besides that, we start from CDK. I think CDK is improving ever so slightly every game. I think I was talking to a couple people after the game, and he has that Kaká elegance to him. He's not there yet. He's very raw, but he has an elegance in him where he makes his passes and he's holding the ball very well. He's strong. He has the vision. Well, there's one play in the second half where he makes a run. If Messias feeds him, he's gone on a breakaway and maybe a 2-on-1, maybe 1-on-0 against the goalkeeper. Messias misses the pass, but I think CDK is improving. I'd like to see more of Adli, Vrank, some of these other youngsters give these older guys a rest and see what they can do. They're talented. Yes, I know Pioli loves to bring these guys on slowly. It's worked in the past, but our team is, a little unstable at the moment. Maybe these youngsters can help rejuvenate them as Malik Chow has. Maybe CDK will with a full 90 or a Vrank or an Adli or some of these guys.
Yeah. Eduardo, we're going to talk about all 20 teams, man. I know, but Milan's grabbing the headlines for the win here in the Champions League. That's just the nature of it. If it was Inter, we'd be talking a lot about Inter right now. So, but
we'll get to Inter.
Yeah, we will get to Inter. Don't you worry. Because let me read Malik Chow statistically: 3 interceptions, 7 tackles, 8 of a possible 12 ground duels won. And one out of a possible 1 aerial duel won. As far as defensive statistics, a couple of clearances, and he also blocked a shot in the course of the game. Relatively accurate with his passing. I think we'd like to see that. I think we'd like to see that get better. I mean, as a defender, when you're in possession, 77.6% is a little low. You know, eight of those 8 long balls, one was accurate. So that a lot of that was factored into those numbers. So, you know, when you're just looking at it, but I mean, you look at the defensive aspect of it, and I had somebody in a chat, you know, from the fantasy, so from Run Pure Sports, on the soccer page on the Discord, just flat out, he said Malik Chow is a stud, you know, and I said, yeah, this is his second straight excellent performance. And I think he's probably earned the right to start every game. So
I think it's the third game he's been in a shutout with 2 this season that he's played 2 in the league and 1 in the Champions League, and all 3 shutouts.
He's Milan's Nico Casale, I guess, because Casale was involved in a lot of shutouts for a lot of clean sheets for Lazio.
Casale is good. Casale is good.
Yep. But I think the broader thing that I think the broader picture here, the player, the person that we probably have to give a ton of credit to here is Stefano Pioli.
Yep.
If this was Marco Giampaolo, if this was Maurizio Sarri, if this was managers that don't like to deviate from the way they do things, Inter would have won 3 or 4-0 in the derby. Torino would have probably upset Milan. And Spurs are taking a 2-0 lead back to London in all likelihood.
Yeah.
Okay. The willingness to adapt and the willingness to go to, I mean, it takes a need to just swallow your pride and say, hey, if we're going to win games with the situation that we're in, we've got to do something different. And to take that chance and to take a chance with this system, the last couple of games, bringing in Malik Chow, you know, and going to a 3-4-2-1. Some people say it might be a 3-4-1-2, you know, whatever you want to call it. And discovering some things, and then, you know, saying to Davide Calabria, you're just not informed. You're going to have to sit, you know, and making bold decisions like that. Davide Calabria is the team captain, isn't he?
Yes.
You just told the team you're going to have to sit. You're out of form. I can't play you.
Probably so.
I mean, how many managers stick with their captain, you know, even in difficult times? So to make these changes in the middle of the season is the mark of an intelligent manager. We talked about how Gasparini has really changed the way Atalanta played. But Eduardo saying Pioli addressed the defensive issues, maybe not the best way, but still only 3 goals conceded in the last 3 to 4 games, I think. Well, they've only given up 1 in the last 3 games in all comps, and that was the corner that they conceded to Inter. So in the run of play over the last 270 minutes, they haven't conceded a goal.
Yeah.
So, so there's a little bit of swallowing your pride and adapting and making those necessary changes and putting in something that works.
And before the changes, that's when they gave up the 5 goals against Sassuolo, 4 against Lazio,
Exactly.
3 against Inter in the Coppa, Super Coppa. So yeah,
Exactly.
The changes were necessary, and only 1 goal has been given up since, which Pioli deserves a lot of credit, as you say. Again, with his back against the wall, came up big, at least so far. Right, the last time his back against the wall, Milan went on a 20-some game unbeaten streak.
Right,
I don't know if that's gonna happen again, maybe, but Pioli has found a way to adapt, which he did before, and it's worked. So let's see how he continues from there. This is a great start to his to this little run here. Milan need it because they were struggling mightily.
And now you don't have to win. You don't have to win in London. You better not lose.
Yeah.
But you don't have to win in London, and they've set themselves up for that. So that's a positive. And I see them going to Tottenham and getting a draw and getting through to the last 8. I think that game ends in a draw, which would give Milan the win on aggregate. So, so that's good. Before we get into the Europa and Conference League games, I could have swore I saw on Tuesday that Micah Richards fancies Napoli to win the Champions League.
Bold statement. It's not that out. That's not that crazy when you think about some of the teams that are around. PSG, they're probably going to go out to Bayern, honestly, as talented as they are. Chelsea may go out to Dortmund. Real Madrid obviously is the big fish in this whole thing that you got to worry about. Man City as well. There's some other dark horses in there as well. You can even throw Inter in there to an extent. But Napoli is playing as well as anybody in Europe, dare I say the world. Why not? Why not? They have to be now. They got to have some big tests, right? You're playing Frankfurt, who is a Europa League winner. They got, and then depends who they get and how the draw is, right? But it's not that crazy to me. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I don't think it's that crazy. I really
beginning
don't.
Of the season, if you said that at the beginning of the season before any games played, I would have called them nuts.
Yeah.
But right now, it's not that bad. It's one of the top 3 teams in Europe right now, so that's a fair shout.
I mean, you start with what's in front of them. It's Eintracht Frankfurt, who you think they should be able to dispatch.
Should.
Certainly Frankfurt have some players that you're going to have to be careful of. Daichi Kamada is a talented midfield player. Yeah. Kolo Muani's having an excellent season as a striker.
He's fantastic.
So there's definitely some danger people. Sabrina, good to see you. So Kyle's in the house. Eduardo, good to see you guys. Hey, if you're watching, get in the chat. Check in with us. So I don't think it's that far out of the question. And here's another thing that I'll tell you. I look at the remaining 16 teams in this tournament, and you tell me who's really the favorite. When on form, Manchester City's probably starting to come around. On
form, yeah. Napoli's probably the best in form. If you're talking about pedigree and teams I would be worried about, it's always Real Madrid. Especially with Carlo Ancelotti, it's got to be Real Madrid. But Man City hasn't really proven it yet in the Champions League yet, and some of these other teams as well. So why not Napoli?
Yeah. I mean, so Liverpool may or may not be figuring out their issues. They added Gakpo, and they're trying to figure out they're trying to figure themselves out. Real Madrid, yeah, I mean, the pedigree of them, the experience of their team, Ancelotti as manager, I mean, everything going for them to go ahead and win this. Manchester City is probably the most talented of the teams left. From goalkeeper up to forward. Leipzig, you're not too concerned about. Inter, Porto, you're not too concerned about in terms of this competition. And here's some other things that Napoli have going for them. They have a 15-point lead in Serie A. They can afford, and certainly they're going to want to win their Serie A games and keep their gap.
Yeah.
But they can afford to mix it up a little bit with some of their league games. They have some margin for error here down the stretch in Serie A where they can make Champions League a priority. That's one thing they got going for them. Another thing that I've thought long and hard about, and I want to get your take on this. A lot of these teams bringing back players from deep World Cup runs, relatively deep World Cup runs.
Yeah.
And you're talking about in a summer World Cup, okay, you leave your club, you go play for your country, all right? You go, and regardless of where you end up, when are these guys back with their club teams? Usually 3 to 4 weeks after the clubs have gotten everybody else back to start preseason training. They get a long holiday. They get to detach. They get to take their time off and all that other stuff. This World Cup, all these guys had to go right back to their clubs.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't many teams that had much as far as a break. I think Milan let Theo and Giroud rejoin.
Yeah, the French and Argentine players had a little bit longer layoff because they were in the finals, but everybody else was back immediately.
Yeah, but it wasn't like what you get in a summer World Cup.
No, it was like a week off.
So some of these guys, they get to take a short break and then they got to turn around and they got to come back. And you look at you look at Napoli. I mean, how many of their players really had to do that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Osimhen wasn't there. Kvaratskhelia wasn't there. Lozano was there, but was out after the first round.
Yeah.
Kane
was back quickly.
Yep.
Peter Zielinski and it was there. Lapotko was, he never went. Anguissa.
Yep.
Rui.
Yep. And Napoli might be the least affected team out of the least affected team as far as World Cup hangover. You may make a case that Milan should probably also be that as well.
And as Eduardo says, no Coppa Italia to worry about either.
Right. I mean, bounced by Cremonese of all teams.
Yeah, they got revenge this weekend, but
they did. They got their revenge. So that's another thing to that's another thing to factor. Do you think that some of the because you're looking at Liverpool struggling, you're looking at Chelsea struggling, you're looking at all these teams across Europe that are struggling, and you're wondering, coming back so quickly from the World Cup, that might be having a big impact on a lot of their key players.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a huge impact for most teams outside of Napoli. I mean, Napoli did have players in the World Cup, like you said, but they were back fairly quickly, and so I think that'll certainly be an advantage. I think what we're going to find out, though, even with this 15-point gap, is we as in Calcio Twitter have been boasting about Napoli's depth. They're one of the most depth team in the league, but it'll be tested because you got playing every 3 days, in meaningful games, right? Champions League and Serie A. Yes, they got a 15-point gap, but they're going to want to keep their running, like you said. And so we'll see what kind of rotation Spalletti. This is where Spalletti is going to really have to tinker and be smart about this. You don't want to rotate everybody because you could, change that run that you're on. But you also don't want to burn people out like Sarri's done in the past with Lazio or with Napoli when they were so close against Juventus and run everyone ragged. You don't want to do that either. So he's gonna have to be careful here. He's gonna have to really be the one we focus on here down the stretch when they play this 3 games every 3 days, because that'll be the big factor here. I think Napoli should be focusing more on the Champions League at the moment, at least when the games are going on, while they're spread out. And then maybe take a little break on Serie A, a little break, I say, but that's what, rotation a little bit. But it'll be interesting to see. The depth will be tested, but having those guys fresh, so to say, from the World Cup is going to help immense.
Yep. Their tie with Frankfurt coming up. I'll give you you obviously watch a fair amount of Bundesliga. I'll give you what I see happening here. I mean, as far as Frankfurt and just kind of the scouting report, I think there's enough for Frankfurt, just enough to give Napoli some discomfort. But I think Napoli overall will win this over 2 ties. They've got technical quality with players like Kamada and Götze. They've got a striker who's been in really good form this year in Colomwani.
Yeah.
They have pace in Knauf, if they want to use him, a Dortmund loanee. Lindstrom's talented. And then what's that?
He's got a good shot too.
Yes. And they've got some physicality in defense, mainly Ndika, who can get in there and give Osimhen a little bit of trouble. I think this is a field day for Kvaratskhelia against them. And I think that this is a tie where I think Zielinski is going to be really, really good, or has the chance to be really, really good. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I agree with that. I think the first leg at Frankfurt is going to be the big one, because Frankfurt are good at home, and that crowd gets behind them, I should say. They're very difficult to be. It's a difficult place to play, but Napoli certainly can do that. I think Kvaratskhelia, to your point, he's going to push Lindstrom. Lindstrom is the guy who's going to kind of kickstart that offense coming down that right wing side when he plays on the right wing side. And whoever plays on the right wing side, he's going to want to pin them back and not let them get forward. Because if they get forward, he's going to have a field day going all day, trying to go one-on-one against whoever and try to set up Osimhen or himself or Lozano or Politano, whoever's up there with him. So I think of the 2 legs, it's going to be close in the first leg. You may even look at a score draw. But that's all Napoli's going to need when they go home. I think it's going to be a field day for them, considering if we're still in the same, everyone's healthy, both teams, and they're still in the same form. I fully think Napoli should be able to walk out of this after the second leg. First leg is going to be tough. It absolutely is. Frankfurt is not an easy place to go to by any stretch.
Okay. But we think Napoli go through.
Yeah.
Now, Inter and Porto. I think, and Eduardo, we're going to talk about your Inter boys, so have a listen. Here are the guys at Porto. First of all, Diogo Costa is having an excellent campaign, at least on the Champions League side, in goal. for Porto, and a critical component for why Porto qualified in a group that Atletico Madrid won and Bruges came second. Was it Atletico Madrid that won the group? No, it wasn't Atletico Madrid that won the group. Sorry. Porto won the group. Bruges came second, but it had Atletico Madrid in it. So, and I'm trying to remember who the other. Oh, Leverkusen was the other team in that group. So, forgive me. I didn't imagine that Atletico Madrid couldn't qualify from that group.
I know.
They have a goal-scoring striker in Mehdi Taremi.
Good one.
They've got midfielders that I think can rival Inter's midfielders. Otavio, Estacchio, Uribe, are, where I think Inter have the edge, is for all of his experience and all of his savvy, Pepe is still an old man if they play him back there.
Red card waiting to happen.
Yes. And I think the other defender I think it's David Carmo that would play alongside him, who's a taller guy, more of a target. If Lautaro should not have trouble finding space against the center back pairing for Porto and could make himself pretty dangerous. And I think he is the narrow difference in why Inter could go through.
Yeah. I mean, Porto.
I'm clearly not putting myself out there with that take.
This Porto team is hot. They're 5-6 games in a row now, won at least. They're very good. They're very good at home. They're very good in the league, in their own league, and they're very good in Champions League as well. They've always been a team that's been difficult. Conceição, the manager, he is a fantastic manager. I dare say he may be the advantage over Inzaghi in European play. Not necessarily league play, but even then you could argue that with how they play. But Conceição is a very good manager. He's gonna have these boys ready, and the midfield is gonna be pretty even. I think Inter need to have a healthy Brozovic. Barella's gonna have to be on his game as he normally is. Çalhanoğlu's gonna have to come up big. But I think Çalhanoğlu played very well this weekend. They're gonna rely on his set pieces. I think, though, I agree with you. I think the defenders is where Porto can be had. Pepe's red card waiting to happen. I don't really trust the other two defenders that they have, Zaidu and the fellow you mentioned. I think Dzeko, if Lukaku was in form back 2 years ago, he would be feasting on this defense. And he's not there. Dzeko, though, can do that. He can irritate Pepe enough that he's going to throw him off his game if he plays. And like you mentioned, Lautaro is going to have then the gamut to do what he wants and set people up. And looking for runs by Barella on the back end, or maybe Çalhanoğlu as well. I think this is going to be a tight affair. The first leg is going to be crucial for Inter. It's going to be at home. They're going to have to get the job done. They have to get at least a goal lead going into Porto, because going to Porto is I said Frankfurt was difficult. Porto is any of the Portuguese teams are difficult to play. The fans are immense. I mean, they pack those stadiums unbelievably, and so if Inter has a chance to go through in this group, which I think they can, they have to get it done in San Siro. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They cannot go as a draw. They cannot go down a goal. They have to go up, give themselves the advantage, go to Porto. The Porto has to play kind of out of their shell a little bit, so to speak. And then hopefully they'll be exposed. The Inter can take advantage of that. And, Inter only have to get a draw at that point if they get a victory in the first leg. So Inter certainly are capable. The defense is the weak point, like you mentioned, and I think Inter are absolutely capable of getting a victory in the first leg and both legs.
21 match unbeaten run in all competitions for Porto. Last loss to Benfica in league play back in November, either November or end of October. So it has been a long time since Porto have tasted defeat. So Eduardo says his concern is that Lautaro missed so much on Monday that he is back to his scoreless streak. And he'll just kind of cheat ahead a little bit. Inter and Sampdoria were 0-0. So what I'll say to you about that, Eduardo, is I don't like Lautaro Martinez in environments where Inter have a lot of the ball because I don't think the space is there for him. Now, I think against Porto, I think Inzaghi will set his team up to let Porto have the ball.
And they will want it.
Marcano's, and they will want it. Yeah. Marcano also plays back there with Pepe, but not a defender that you have to be terribly frightened of.
Right.
Whether it's him or Carmo, and then Pepe, or Carmo and Marcano too. If they just decide we can't, Pepe is going to be on an island, they're going to counter and that sort of thing, and that's something Conceição should think about.
Yeah.
But I can see Inter on the counter against these guys, where there's space for Lautaro to go ahead and attack and get behind, where it's Lautaro and Dzeko, or Lautaro, even Lukaku, against the center back pairing for Porto, whatever it may be. So Inter are also a good cup team. They ran Liverpool close last season. I think these are two game environments where Inter are going to have less of the ball, and that is going to suit them.
Absolutely.
As we dive into this. Now, you just have to be careful with the chances that you let Porto have. If you can force shots from midfield, then Onana is going to have a very comfortable 2 games. If you're allowing crosses where Taremi's lurking in the box and is unaccounted for, then you're going to start to have some problems. So I think Inter will edge it.
Yeah.
But to your point, they have to win at San Siro in the first leg.
Yeah.
If they take any other result back to Portugal, they're out. I don't see them being able to go to Porto and reversing it.
I'm not as concerned with Lautaro. We made numerous statements on the show for over the years about Lautaro's streakiness. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's off, he's off. I'm not ready to say he's on his cold streak again. I mean, he's had a fantastic, World Cup. Well, I said pre-World Cup, and then coming out of the World Cup, he's been hot ever since in 2023. Yeah, he has 1 game, but I mean, nobody scored in that game against Sampdoria, right? I'm not going to say he's on a scoreless run just yet. Now, it very well could be a couple more games here, and we could be saying that. But at present, I'm not going to say that. But my big worry for that game is the counter. Is that a thing? When Inter get their counter opportunities, if they turn it over in those counters, they leave themselves wide open on the back and get exposed. Porto can counter as well, right? So an Inter counter, they're going to have to be clinical. They have to be smart with the ball. They cannot lose the ball and turn it over and leaving their back 3 and Onana exposed, because that will open those goals. We're talking about, limiting the quality opportunities against Onana. Those, I think, are the plays that will scare me, because Inter will go, let's go for the counter attack, go for the goal, and they do some kind of silly pass, cross pitch or something, turn it over, and here we go. It goes the other way, and look out, Porto can finish the ball. So that's my big worry in this leg here, especially both home and away for Inter. So we'll see. It's gonna be a chess match. Conceição versus Inzaghi. I think both managers are gonna have their teams ready for this. Conceição always has something up his sleeve. We've seen over the years. I mean, ask Juventus how they do against Porto, right?
Right.
Porto come to play in Europe. They do, and you got to take this team seriously, which I know Inter will. It's gonna be a fun affair, I think, for the neutral. Maybe not so much for Eduardo and the Interisti, clenching their fists and hoping the Inter win. But I think it's gonna be entertaining.
We are banging the drum for 3 Italian teams to reach the last 8, and we think it's very reasonable that it can happen. Yeah. The critical game is next Wednesday when Inter host Porto.
Absolutely.
So we'll see how that goes. Previewing to Thursday's games, Europa League and Conference League, and let's start with the Europa League. Richard, Red Bull Salzburg, Roma. This is a Red Bull Salzburg that Milan comfortably put aside in match day 6 in the group stage. But in Austria was a little bit of a different story. I believe it ended. Was that a 1-1 draw there? Or Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they drew 1-1. That was the opening game of the group stage. So, and then they drew that game. There's players certainly to be concerned about. Noah Okafor is a talented striker. Nicholas Seibold is a good playmaker out of the midfield, as is Lukas Sucic. You also have Andreas Ulmer at left back. So there's still some pieces, even though this isn't the Salzburg of the last few years. There's enough to be worried. It's all going to be coming down to what Mourinho puts out, lineup-wise. I think he plays a relatively strong lineup. I don't know why he wouldn't. Do
you feel that it's the first leg? Because if Roma somehow capitulate that game, they lose like 2-0, 3-0, that he doesn't even try in the second leg? That Roma have to get a decent result for them to try in the second leg? What do you think?
There's a possibility that he punts it, sure. But I don't think that'll happen. I think they go there and draw 1-1, which sets up come to Olimpico and win, and you go through. So, and I say that because I think Roma have just, as an away team, it's not necessarily pretty. Even though away this year in Serie A, they've got the third best away record. Every time I say that about somebody, and then I go and look at their stats, they're actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So, but I think 1-1's reasonable. Take that draw, go back to Olimpico, win there, and go through is kind of what I look at. There, Juventus against Nantes.
Two mid-table teams.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about this. I mean, if this is Juventus's path to the Champions League next season, because if they're able to appeal this 15-point penalty, I think Martino mentioned a couple weeks ago, there's another penalty right behind it that might be coming. So, Ludovic Blas is the playmaker that you got to be concerned about when you watch these guys play. Moses Simon has been their long-term one of their better strikers through the but is out, and I don't think is going to play here. Mustafa Mohamed is a striker that you got to be concerned with. People will be familiar with Musa Sissoko in the midfield, and Albin Lafont in goal. Lafont has some Serie A experience. But I don't think not have enough here. The bookmakers seem to agree because they've got them as a plus 650 underdog in Turin. They also have both teams to score. The odds at no are at minus 175, and the over 2.5 is only at minus 110. So this all tells you that people are prepping for Juventus to win this opening leg 2-0, and I'm having a hard time disagreeing with that.
Yeah, no, that's a good shot there. I'll start with that game. I agree with that. I think Allegri, the way the Juventus has been playing lately, that they're gonna try to continue on that form. I think Juventus have much more talent than Nantes. Not to take anything from Nantes, but I mean, look at some of the players that Juventus have right now. I mean, guys like Di Maria. Di Maria is like world class, or he was world class. He's still a fantastic player. And Vlahovic and Kostic and all those guys. They should win, and I think Allegri is going to go for the smart play. He's not going to go for the big, open play, expansive kind of play where he scores 3 goals against Atalanta. No, we're going to see 2 goals at max. 2-0 is a good shot. I think 2-0 is a good shot. If this first leg was in Nantes, I would probably say 2-1 or something. But I think at home they should be feeling the love there with the half-filled stadium. But I very much agree that Juventus should win 2-0 there. And then the Roma game, I agree with who said it. I think it was Kyle said it. Salzburg's going to be tricky at home. Hopefully Roma and Mourinho were paying attention when they played Milan and see how well that Salzburg can play. They played well, obviously better at San Siro the first in the group stages, but I think they can be very good at home. They're strong home support. We got some talented players that can get you one-on-one. Okafor, Milan fans, we remember him, and he's just the tip of the iceberg there. There's some of the guys that you mentioned, so that'll be a tricky tie, I think, with Roma. If they get away with a score draw, I think that's a fantastic result for them. I don't know if they can win in Salzburg, but they better not lose. And even if they lose by a goal, I think they're still in a good situation because they go back home to Roma, play their style, and get some goals there with the crowd there at the Olimpico. I think they can overall take this 2 legs, but the fixture at Salzburg is going to be tricky for sure.
Yep, definitely agreed. So I think we're all kind of, even the chats, in agreement with what we think is going to happen in these games. Let's go to cover the Conference League games. So this is where it won't be rosy for Italian. I think Fiorentina lose at Braga tomorrow. They're just all over the place with their form. Yeah. Now they're going away to a good Braga side.
Portuguese clubs.
What's that?
Those Portuguese clubs.
Yeah, I don't see this going well for La Viola. I'm actually I'll give them a goal, but that's about the extent of which I'm going to do this. I think Braga win 2-1.
Yeah.
And 3-1's probably not out of the question. And now Lazio get to host Cluj. Cluj on the back of a couple of back-to-back defeats in their own league. So they're not coming in the greatest of form. And it's at the Olimpico, where Lazio have played really well and have beaten way better teams than Cluj, even though Lazio lost at the weekend at home to Atalanta. But I think Lazio sweep aside Cluj with relative ease. I go 3-0 for Lazio on Thursday. You know that Ciprian Dayac is still there at Cluj.
Wow.
How
Wow.
old is
I'm
he?
surprised.
Is he 55?
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. I had to look that up, and I was like, man, maybe it's Ciprian Dayac Jr. And he's like, no, it's the same dude.
Wow.
So, but anyway, so I think Fiorentina lose at Braga. I think Lazio win comfortably at home against Cluj.
Yeah, I'm with you on Braga, Fiorentina. I agree. Those Portuguese clubs at home are very good, and Braga are no exception. I think 2-1's a good shot. I'm gonna say 2-0 in that game. I think Braga is gonna. I just can't trust Fiorentina at the moment. And normally, if Cluj were doing their thing in the league, I would pick Cluj in this game.
Yeah.
But they've struggled lately, and that has me worried in terms of if I was a Cluj supporter. Not necessarily because a Lazio supporter. I think Lazio are going to be happy. I think Lazio need to win at least by 2 goals. I say this because if Cluj find their form back, Cluj is a team that can score goals. They don't have the talent that like Lazio have, but they know how to play. They know how to attack. I mean, look what they did so far this season. They put pressure on the opposing goal. They'll find a way to get into the second leg, especially when it's at home. Lazio don't travel well either in Europe. And Serie A, they're very good, but we've seen in Europe they struggle, especially when you go to these places, far off places. You're like, it's a daunting trip, right? So Lazio, I think, will win, and I hope it is at least 2-0, if not 3-0, like you said, because they're gonna need that. They're gonna need that big advantage going to Cluj on the second leg.
Yep. I agree with all of that. If Fiorentina do lose bad tomorrow, it's going to be hard to turn that around at home. Braga are a really good team. Yeah, Braga inexplicably got bounced from the group stage in the Europa League. So, but we'll see what happens with that. I'm not painting a rosy picture for Fiorentina, but I think all of the other Serie A teams are in reasonably good shape for qualifying. So we'll see if they follow through with that now. So those were that's our roundup on all of the European teams, because we still have 7 teams alive in Europe. But we should probably put a bow on match week 22, Richard.
Yeah, we should get into that. Looking at some of the scores. First off, started off on what was, I guess, his last Friday. Milan. It was Milan kicking off the weekend. Milan, as we mentioned earlier, they got the win against Torino, 1-0 in that game. Early shutout, obviously, again, with Malik Chow was involved in that game as well. Moving on, one of the entertaining games, Spezia against Empoli. Spezia kind of got off to a 2-0 lead thanks to a red card from Empoli. Looked like they were going to be sitting pretty till they got their own red card. And then Empoli came roaring back, got a goal in stoppage time. This ultimately ended up costing Gotti his job. He ended up getting fired. But 2-2, that game ended. A fun game, entertaining game to watch. Again, another entertaining game was Lecce and Roma. Lecce score early in the game, and Roma had some chances. They got a goal, made a 1-1. I think Falcone was a fantastic man of the match for me in this one. Really stood on his head. I thought Lecce played well despite getting a barrage of shots. Game ends 1-1 there. The big game, the marquee game of the weekend, outside of the derby, which we'll get to, Lazio hosting Atalanta. Both teams are, vying for top 4 and, maybe trying to get into that second spot, the elusive second spot. What we saw is Atalanta, they got into defensive mode and they played the counterattack game through Adama Lukman, through Højlund, and company, Zappacosta, who got the first goal in this game, and then ultimately Højlund got the second goal from assist from Lukman. Atalanta 2-0 victory. Musso, fantastic performance in that game, I thought. really stood on his head to save some of these chances by Lazio. Ciro Immobile back, not necessarily a good thing for Lazio. They lose in this one 2-0. Another entertaining game. Udinese Sassuolo. I mean, 4 goals in the first half. What more could you want, right? You probably want more goals in the second half. Didn't happen. Trading goals back and forth. Udoji got the goal scoring started early in the first half. And then we saw Sassuolo, both teams trading shots. I thought it'd be more goals. I got up early to watch this game. Unfortunately,
you're the
goals
one.
In the second. I was, I was, and Sonia probably too watching.
Sonia was up, yeah.
And we both got kids too, right? So that's where we're up. But yeah, the second half didn't have any more goals. However, it was still a very entertaining game. I thought both goalkeepers did well. Teams had chances. It just the finishing, the clinical finishing was gone, non-existent in that second half. And either way, entertaining 2-2 game there. Monza beat Bologna at the flying Thiago Motta's in Bologna. Patania, man, he's finding a second wind, I guess, or third wind with Monza.
He didn't even have a first wind.
That's true. That is very true. But he kind of slalomed through the team. He's very good. Say what you want about Patania. He's very good at holding off the opposition with the ball, with the big body, right? And end up setting up, I think it was Donati who got the goal in that one. Monza, impressive win. They've leapfrogged Bologna now. They're ninth in the table, knocking on Europe. I don't think they're going to get it, but this is damn impressive by Monza this season. But they win 1-0 against Bologna. The derby I mentioned, Juventus hosting Fiorentina, 2 teams who hate each other. Again, Fiorentina just all over the place. I thought Juventus did very well in this game. They got a scrappy goal through Rabiot. Terracciano made the save, went to VAR, crossed the line. Good goal. And Juventus, that's all they would need. I thought they had more of the chances. They probably should have scored a little bit more, but overall, Juventus wins that game. Typical Allegri match, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
There was I'll get back to that after. Moving on, Napoli, as we talked about, getting their revenge against Cremonese, 3 goals there. Osimhen continues his assault on the Capocannoniere with his 17th goal in this one. Arashele got the goal scoring started early. And then Elmas came off the bench and almost immediately scored a goal there. So 3-0 against Cremonese. Extend their lead up top. There's now 15 points up top at the table from second place Inter. Hellas and Salernitana, relegation 6-pointer that Hellas pretty much controlled in this game. Salernitana had a couple of chances, but it was really Hellas Verona. The goal scorer, they only had 1 goal in this game, 1-0 victory. But Hellas looked fairly in control in this game. This ultimately also cost the job for the second time this season. Davide Nicola, he gets fired, and they bring on Paulo Sousa, I believe, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Paulo Sousa's coming in there.
Is Paulo Sousa getting this? He's over there at Salernitana now?
I believe so. I could be wrong, but I thought who got the job is Salernitana. But Hellas win that game 1-0. And then to end everything, Sampdoria against Inter. A game that lacking goals. It clearly lacked goals. There were some opportunities, obviously. Both teams had some opportunities in this one, but the goals were lacking in this one. And that's say what you want. Stankovic got his boys fired up to play, one of the top teams in the league. And don't look now. A week ago, maybe it's even 2 weeks ago, everyone was laughing outside of the Milan camp. Hey, Milan, they're struggling. But every team pretty much fell that had to fall this week, and all of a sudden Milan are 2 points back. They're right there in the hunt for the top 4, and even the second place team, right? Because Inter fell as well. So it's tight up there. It's tight in the top 4. I'm curious in your thoughts in this match week, but in particular, I want to draw your attention to Juve and Fiorentina. 2 goals in this game in the second half. Vlahovic first, taken back, says offsides. Then it was who I forget who scored for Fiorentina. Castrovilli. That guy's taken away. I think both calls were incorrect. I think both should have been gone. The rule is stupid with VAR. Obviously, with the attacker, any piece of the body is offsides. The defender, it's not. It's like the torso. And so they could be even, but the torso is, behind where the player is, and the guy's offsides. And I think both calls are incorrect. The offside rules, which I hate, I've talked about this all the time. It drives me crazy. I think both calls are incorrect. It wouldn't have mattered. I think Juve would have won anyway. They would have both goals if they had it counted. But Yeah, it just continues to drive me crazy. I'm curious in your thoughts.
So it was body parts that don't impact the offside position, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so for a defender, his arm could be stuck out like this, but they would only cut the torso. That's where the line is.
Okay.
And if the attacker anything was over that, they count that as the front. So both players could be like this. The arm's the exact same way. The attacker will be offsides. It's stupid.
Okay. I mean, I mean, we hate it, but they were interpreted in their strictest definitions.
And they call it the same way for both teams, so
yeah.
I guess it's fair.
Yeah. So, and that probably is the best way I can react to all of that. So, I just, I didn't, when I looked at it, I didn't raise as much of a stink because I've seen it get called. I think it's been getting called like that all season.
I know, it just drives me every time I see it. I'm like, oh, I hate this.
And you're not an easily aggravated man either.
No,
so
no. It's the stupid things that aggravate me.
Yeah.
Things that shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, I want to introduce everybody to the new player that we're touting here at Serie A Sitdown, Cyril Ngonge.
Yeah.
Dynamic player. He does not feel like a Hellas Verona player. I mean, I'm sorry.
Of a couple years ago, maybe, but not. Yeah, no, definitely not right now.
Yeah, but great scouting by them. They brought him in from Groningen. He was relatively prolific in his time there, and scored here. I think he scored in the previous game too for Hellas Verona. So he's become a creative part of what they're doing. And then the other comment that they made, Darko Lazovic in this 10 role for Hellas Verona has been a big part of why they're having the success that they're having. And then you've got decent wingback play from Doig and Faraoni. Is it Tapali? I always get those two mixed up. Help me out here. It was Faraoni, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
I'm going to look it up. This is driving me nuts. Chat's going to probably tell me. See, he's not even in the top 10 players on my list here. That's crazy. Where are you? How are you? Okay, so Davidovic, Faraoni. I was right. It was Faraoni.
Okay.
Yeah, DePauli's at Sampdoria, I think, still. So
no, he played in this game. DePauli.
DePauli?
Yeah.
Get out of here. Where is he?
I can. He played on the right side.
Yeah, he did. What the hell is wrong with me? Yeah, they're both on the same team. Shows you how much I know about Hellas Verona. I just,
they've been in the relegation spot all season. Like, give him a break.
Well, here's the thing: when you've got Lazovic playing so well, and you've got this Ngonge kid who's starting to become a little bit of a revelation that I think is going to be really good, you just forget everybody else that's out there. Yeah. So, Coppola, young, useful defender too for them. Yeah. So, watch out for him. But we said this. We've said this for the last few weeks, Richard. We said, that Hellas Verona is the most likely to come out of this, and Spezia, it's going to be at Spezia's expense, and it's trending that way.
Yep.
Spezia finally found some goals. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep Empoli out enough. And to your point, Luca Gotti lost his job. Salernitana sacked Nicola, and you are right. It is Paulo Sousa taking over. We'll see what impact he can have. Now, Paulo Sousa, I don't know if he's done much with three-man defenses, and Salernitana have been that way under Nicola. And
reunion with Fazio.
Yeah, you've got that. You've got that going for them. Although I think Dylan Braun's their best defender over there at Salernitana. But it's just we'll see what he can do because I don't think they're safe anymore either. I mean, Verona's climbing out of this, and they're only 2 back of Spezia, 4 back of Salernitana. I think Sassuolo's going to get safe as we go, as will Fiorentina. I think Lecce is just buoyed by their home form, and here they go again, and this time it's Roma.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just giving everybody evidence. Really, really hard to win there. not a lot of teams have been able to go and do that. So, and I still don't. I think Cremonese's finished. I still refuse to drop Sampdoria yet. Yeah, it's still a big ask at 11 points. Okay, 10 points behind Salernitana, who they would probably have to overcome. If you're dropping Spezia into this space, and you're getting Verona out of there, and the madness of Calcio is always entertaining. De Rossi getting sacked by Spal after only 3 months. Yeah, I saw that too. So, because I think that there's enough decent talent there at Sampdoria, and if Stankovic has them playing better, they played bravely against Inter. They played the way they had to play, to get something out of that game against Inter, and to get a point. Now they're going to have to figure out how to score goals here soon if they're going to get out of it. But the players are there. But I would probably take Salernitana's team players over Sampdoria's players if I'm pushed to pick a squad, though. At the moment, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I'd rather have Boulaye over anybody that Sampdoria is playing up front right now.
Yeah, I really like that kid. He's gonna. I say kid because he's younger than me, but he's definitely a man, and he's a fantastic player.
Yep. So, I'd rather have Brown over any of the defenders that Sampdoria have. I'd rather have Ochoa over Audero, just narrowly, but Audero, because Audero's been pretty good.
Yeah.
He was really good here against Inter. And then here we come back with Inter, an environment where they have a lot of the ball and can't create.
Yeah.
Well, they can. They took 25 shots. They took 5 on target, but how many of those chances were you really scared by?
Yeah.
So this is a pretty damning thing. And we said it. You said, how do you make Inter uncomfortable? You give them the ball. So
we'll see what Udinese does next week when they play them.
Oh, do you think Sotil sets them up defensively?
If he's smart, he should. I know they want to have to play the ball and play beautiful, but they should play defensively. Let Inter have the ball, make them uncomfortable, and hit them on the counterattack.
Yeah. So, Atalanta, great performance from them here at Lazio, and probably why we can't totally take Lazio seriously in this conversation for top 4. You wanted to come back and have this top 4 discussion. It's still wide open. It's still 5 teams playing for 3 spots. Napoli are going to win this title. But they all have their qualities and they all have their flaws at the same time. Inter in games where they're possession dominant can't play, for whatever reason, it doesn't work as well for them. Atalanta have found a new way to play. They're not relying on high positioned technicians like they had with Ilicic and Malinovsky anymore. Now they're going with pace. Now they're going with guys like Lookman who can get behind you and Rasmus Højlund who can score the goals. And boy,
but they're
Rasmus
not flexible in their formation. So either they're all defensive or all attack, and they can't find a healthy mix between the two.
Do they need to though? I mean, because
when they play the big teams, they have to find, like, maybe not Lazio, but you play one of the bigger teams. They need to find if the bigger teams will find out your strengths and minimize it and force you to play another way. And in game, you need to be able to adapt, which a lot of the managers, in Serie A, Spalletti, Pioli, Inzaghi, they can do that.
Okay.
Gasparini's team, I don't think they can.
Okay, I can accept that, but I think they were like more, they were wider and expansive and used the wing backs and things like that. Now they've gone to being a little more compact, trying to protect Musa more, and then just hitting you on the break. A beautiful counterattacking goal. Lookman to Højlund. It didn't make my top 5, but it's worth noting.
You see Højlund's play that he got stopped, but he went on Lookman fed him for a breakaway, and he just balled past 2 players. He's got speed. He's got speed.
He does. Deceptive too. Mm-hmm. Deceptive. So, we think Milan's kind of climbing out of this a little bit with the changes that they've made. Roma's just been steady.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to describe them. I'm not gonna blast them for coming up short at Lecce, because that's, Milan drew there. I think Lazio lost there. It's just a fixture that's been very difficult on the big teams.
Yep.
Even in their defeat at Napoli, they played pretty well. They pushed Napoli to, I think, you cut that game 4 minutes short, and they're walking out of there with a point. So I think right now it's I think Inter grab a Champions League place. I really want to believe that Milan will grab a Champions League place at the end of this, that they're going to come around and they're going to come good. They'll recover everybody and get themselves back in the ascendancy. And then I honestly think the last fourth spot is down to Roma or Atalanta.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the season, I predicted Roma to finish top 4, so I'll just go with that. I have enough of a belief or a theory that what Atalanta is doing, as impressive as it's been this season and the changes that Gasperini made, most likely to be found out down the stretch of the season. So There you have it.
Okay.
Napoli win it, and then Inter, Milan, Roma, and in whatever order, it doesn't matter. So I'm still sticking with that as my top 4.
I think one thing I differ is I would go probably Atalanta over Roma. I feel like I could trust Atalanta just a little bit more over Roma just because they got guys like Lookman and Højlund who've been more clinical than Roma's best guys up top. Though not to say they're Tammy Abraham and Dybala haven't been sensational. They have, but at the moment, the way Gasperini's kind of found ways to be successful in this new style, I got them just slightly over Roma, but I'm not going to hold Milan to not finish second at this point. I mean, they're only 3 points back. As bad as they played, a big stretch that they had, it's looking like they may be coming out. And history with Pioli will tell you that when he gets out of the ruts, they're out of the ruts for good for a good while. And so, none of these teams, none of the top 7, top 6 are playing consistent at all.
Right.
And
I mean, then that's another thing. That's another thing with Napoli. Why Napoli is just going to continue to run away with this because all of these other teams are just going to cannibalize each other.
And Milan don't have to play Inter again, right? They can't beat Inter for the life of them, but they don't have to play them again, so they don't have to worry about that. Inter got some big games up ahead as well. Both teams do, right? But I think Inter, Milan, and Atalanta just edges Roma out of this, and Lazio again sitting out looking not pretty.
Okay, well we're different. So we're different on the 4th team.
Yeah.
So. Okay, I'm fine with that, and we can sign Lazio back to the Europa League, and assuming that Juventus don't get this points penalty taken care of. I mean, they've made a charge here. I think they get 7th and end up being the Conference League team.
Yeah. Imagine they finish second somehow if they get the points back. I mean,
Oh, I mean, if they get the points, I mean, if you gave them the points now, they'd be sitting on 44, tied with Inter.
Imagine they win Europa League and get into Champions League next year. I don't think it's going to happen. There's too many good teams, but anything is possible, right?
Yep.
But that would be something.
How they play tomorrow against Nantes is going to be very telling about their prospects and their ambition for Europa League.
Yeah.
I personally think, I mean, this is your path back to the Champions League.
Yep.
Go and try and take it from them. So, and we'll see. We'll see if they do exactly that. So, goals of the week.
The 2 goals that stood out for me, I mean, really, Zappacosta, his goal, the first goal of the game against Lazio was really nice, and as well as Verdi. Verdi had a sensational strike from distance outside the box that went top corner against who was it? Vicario. And Vicario's not an easy goalkeeper to beat, so those are my top 2 at least.
Okay. I ended up doing 5. I'll go Verdi. Daniele Verdi was my goal of the week. The goal from distance for Spezia, and then Zappacosta was second, the curler against Lazio. Third for me was Kvaratskhelia goal for Napoli against Cremonese, the individual effort and then find the space. Fourth for me was the goal by Cyril Ngonja. And then fifth for me was Emmanuel Vignato's equalizer for Empoli against Spezia. So
shout out to Musso and Falcone, big games for them respectively for Atalanta and Lecce.
Agreed. So we've rounded it all up. So we should now just finish up with the world's most popular hashtag game. It's time for Who Won Calcio Twitter. Richard, take it away.
All right. Yes. Who on Calcio Twitter back in our lives again for another week. That is annoying to me. Sorry, I had music going in the background, so it was driving me crazy. Moving on. First, Napolinissimo again. Another contribution every week. You love this guy. Icardi, when Zaniolo tries to steal an Istanbul win from him, now that Zaniolo is now in Turkey.
Yeah. Don't fucking try any of that shit, because I've been here before. I'm a professional. This is what I do. Don't fucking try it.
Don't fucking try it. I'm a professional. This is what I do. Oh man.
Okay, at J Mancini 8. Be careful out there, everyone. I had 2 Roma tickets in my car, and someone broke in and left 4 more. But did that really happen to his car?
No, that's someone. People have been doing this for a while. That's someone happened to somebody, but not Jerry.
Oh, okay, got it.
All right. Nima pinging us on this one. It's from Don Tico Inter Lover, and it's it's Milan, Napoli, Serie A, Juventus, Inter, all outside the wall, and the poorest team in EPL, which is Fulham, says they're sitting pretty. Milan's the Serie A teams have no money, they're poor, and the poorest team is living in luxury. So sad but true.
Clever. And there's a little dig on our inability to attract new players here in January for the most part. At Henry Bell Calcio, let's hope ADL isn't watching San Remo 23. This could be the next concept kit for Napoli in Serie A English. Oh, God.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Traumatizing, but it could happen. All right.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of these Valentine's Day special kits that Napoli broke out for Sunday.
Me neither. Little homage to Rolling Stones, I guess, with the lips, but not for me.
Yeah.
From Bergkamp, Lee Mason has taken more points off Arsenal than any team in the Premier League this season. Oh, man.
All right.
All right. I like that.
Okay. Let's see. Moving on, at the Mark Gordon, 2 assists yesterday for Venezia's Joel Poyampalo, who was substituted before rewarding himself with a pint from the stadium bar.
Yeah. Love to see that. That's the way to do it, man. That's the way. You get 2 goals, go get a beer from the bar, and then enjoy the rest of the game. Love that.
I like that. Like that. That's hey, I think that's more for the player.
Yes, that goes for the player.
Joel Poyampalo wins Calcio. Our friend had been Joel. We're gonna have to. We've got his hashtag. So
that's right. Make him a winner, possibly. Napoli Sansone, huge win for Juventus FC, who now sit level on points with Monza and Bologna. Not anymore, but they did.
At Chiesa di Totti, Mourinho looking at his options on the bench. Patrick Mahomes writhing in pain from his ankle injury.
That's good. All right. Napolinissimo again. It's Conte every year in the Champions League. Sometimes you got to walk away and say, fuck it, I tried. Oh, man.
Yeah. Okay. And then he's back again. Kulishevsky against Milan.
With a Juventus jersey on. Yep.
Yeah, Juve Kulishevsky was a little unflattering, wasn't he?
Yeah. One more. It's from AJ Fino alla Fine. Breaking news. Following the Barcelona match-fixing scandal, Inter have submitted an appeal to be awarded the 15-16 Champions League title when they didn't qualify.
I'm sorry. I'm going for Joel Poyampalo.
Yeah, the player
as our winner of Calcio Twitter this week.
I agree. You're gonna go get a beer after 2 goals in game? Go for it. Yeah, that's a winner for me. Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Awesome.
That's great. Thank you, Mark Gordon, for pointing this to us. You get the assist, but it's definitely Poyampalo is going to get the win in this one. So while you do that, I'll look ahead to next week's games. Some big games on the marquee. It may look not like a marquee, but I think Sassuolo Napoli could be an entertaining game, especially if Sassuolo continue the fine form that we've seen lately from them, especially in the goal department. It could be a high-scoring game. Certainly from Napoli's side, but maybe at Sassuolo as well. Also, it is the Berlusconi Bunga Bunga Party Derby. Monza hosting Milan. It should be an interesting game. If nothing else, you're going to see great tifos honoring Berlusconi from the traveling fans of Milan. Inter Udinese. That's going to be an entertaining game. We talked about it. What is Sotil going to do with his team? How is he going to line up against Inter? He's going to give them the ball, or he's going to go after them. I could tell a lot about how this game ends. Inter, you would think, be the favorites in this one. They are the favorites in this one, but don't be surprised if Udinese shocks some people here. And then also looking at some of these games, that's really it for me. In terms of
you're talking about this weekend's games. Yeah, we have Napoli at Sassuolo. I am expecting Napoli to hold serve there. Sassuolo's starting to play a little bit better, but I don't think the defending is there for Sassuolo to be able to hold them. I think the Milan Monza game is very intriguing. Monza's been playing better. They've been finding ways to win and get points. This might be a step too far for them if Milan are starting to play and starting to gain a little bit of confidence with the system that they're playing. And to your point, yeah, Inter Udinese is going to be interesting. Is an interesting watch as well. So that will certainly be interesting too. And then Roma hosting Hellas Verona. They're late on Sunday. Can Hellas Verona continue to put together points? Can they catch Roma making the trip back from Austria and snatch a point at the Olimpico? Should be compelling as well. So that's what I've got. So but we will put a bow on this edition of Serie A Sit Down. Anything else, Richard?
No.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, and Ollie, I missed you, buddy. Missed the Milan horror month. That's what it is, Ollie. You were working the entire month of January, and Milan started losing. Stop working.
We know who to blame now. We know who to blame now.
Yes, we do. Okay. So Serie A Sit Down, we have our own channel on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. You can also catch us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Wherever there are podcasts, there is Serie A Sit Down. At FTC_21 is where you can find me. At R_KHARMAN it is where you can find Richard. At Serie A Sit Down on Twitter, on Instagram. Any thoughts, comments, questions, hit us up there. Who won Calcio Twitter nominations? Just keep those on Twitter. Hashtag Who Won Calcio Twitter, all one word when you're making a nomination. So that we can keep it clean. Keep it fun. Anything that we deem offensive, we're not going to read. So just to make sure that you're aware of that. So you can also find us on Facebook too, although we're rarely there these days. And then here on the YouTube channel, if you're watching us for the first time, Dino's joining us. Milan's defense now salad. Tom, of course, yes, absolutely. If you are watching this for the first time, please drop a like if you enjoyed the content here. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, so this way you can be alerted whenever we go live or whenever we have a video drop, because we will have video drops. So that is all the rundown. Next Wednesday night after Inter and Napoli have played their Champions League game. Sound good to you, Richard? Yeah, let's do next Wednesday night again. So we will catch you guys then. Until then, and chat, thank you all very, very much. Great job keeping it lively. We appreciate it. For Richard, I'm Frank. As always, tell your paisans about us. Ciao.